Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on where in the world you're joining us today. My name is Julia, your usual host for Internet Vikings live streams. Today, as you have noticed, it's not a Wednesday. We normally go live on Wednesdays. We decided to go live on a Thursday. It's June the 8th, and it's the World Ocean Day. And we prepared a special stream for you today. I have a guest with me today, Glen, who is a communication and CSR coordinator for the iGen.
Hello.
Hello, welcome, Glen. Would you like to introduce yourself and tell a bit more about yourself?
Sure. My name is Glen Smith. I'm an Englishman. I've been living here in Malta for about 8 years. I came down to work in the iGaming industry, and I spent 5.5 years working for Betson, and then I left Betson and I started working with iGen, which is the umbrella lobby organization for the gaming industry here in Malta. So my role there is to basically put out the communications from iGen, which are amalgamated from all of our members, and also organise environmental cleanups for them. We've done 3 or 4 every year, quite large-scale ones, and that's why I'm here today to talk about what we're going to be doing for World Oceans Day, and also other aspects of the work that we do.
Thank you very much, Glen. As all of you are aware, sustainability and ecology has a growing concern today, and many companies and many industries bring their forces together to help to eliminate the problem and make our world a bit of a better place and a bit of a more pleasant place to live in. And iGaming industry is no exception. So today we invited Glen to speak about how iGaming industry contributes to the sustainability and making Malta specifically a better place. So, shall we start?
Sure.
So let's start straight away with what role do you see iGaming playing in sustainability?
That's a very good question. There's a few different parts to this answer. One of them is, of course, that the iGaming industry is one of the major industries in Malta, and it employs almost 11,000 people, and it generates 10% of Malta's GDP. So it has a major influence here. And if we can agree that there is environmental issues here in Malta, which obviously that there are, that the iGaming industry as a whole can come together and use its influence to propose environmental improvements and suggestions towards sustainability that the government are already doing. So that gives us quite a big platform. But also because we have so many sort of young professional people within the iGaming industry itself who have quite a lot of knowledge around sustainability and have environmental concerns, we can motivate them to volunteer to come to the different events that we carry out and show their support by actually participating in physically cleaning up the environments, which are in desperate need of attention here. So yeah, I think the gaming industry has a huge potential to affect meaningful change, and later on I'll talk about how we're actually working together with the Maltese Environmental Ministry on proposals for how we can collaborate with them long term around issues around sustainability and ESG, for example.
Thank you very much, Glen. So you're saying that there are many ways in which iGaming can contribute to the sustainability goals. So what are these ways?
Well, I can say the way we work within iGen, obviously, that we're a lobbying organisation for 28 of the biggest gaming companies on the island, and of them, I would say 12 to 15 are active within the CSR and environmental movements that I'm organising. So what we do, we don't have an agenda within iGen itself. We canvass our members to find out what environmental concerns that they have, and then we put them together into a proposal, for example, that we took to the ministry last year. So concerns that had arisen within the iGaming industry and employees of the iGaming industry that we could take to them and say, look, these are the concerns that we have as an industry. And within those concerns were very specific things like the lack of access to sustainable energy sources, for example. These are things which, obviously, if you are a company with a focus on sustainability, you would be looking to source your energy from sustainable sources. And at the time that we had the first meeting with the ministry, for example, there were very few, if any, sustainable energy sources available in Malta. But in the intervening year since the first meetings we had with them, it's become knowledge to us that they are actually launching sort of major solar power plants here on the island, and there's a recently announced initiative into investments in wind and wave power, for example. So as an industry, we can put pressure on them to say these are things that we need ourselves, because obviously, with the ESG and the CSRD reporting requirements which are coming in, these are things which all of our companies and our member companies are going to need to be able to address these kind of issues. So yeah, that's that would be my answer to that. Yeah.
Thank you very much. And how's it going so far for the iGaming industries? What are the main challenges would you say you faced while trying to implement those initiatives?
Well, there is a fairly well understood glacial pace of progress and change here in Malta. There are lots of initiatives which are announced, and there's a lot of money earmarked for a specific kind of projects, like greening projects and stuff. I'm not sure that there's a huge amount of understanding of the on the ground needs that we experience. Because as well as working with IGEN, I also work with the local environmental and NGO organizations under the umbrella of the Coalition for Sustainable Development. So what we see on the ground can be very, very different from the picture that we get from the government about things which need to be done. So whereas maybe the government would like to invest huge amounts of money in these kind of large, what we call vanity projects, the greening urban areas, we would see investment in the waste infrastructure, more bins, more frequent emptying of rubbish bins, for example, because nobody who lives in Malta can be unaware of the fact that trash is a major problem here, and that it's not an efficient and effective waste collection service that they have here. And I would say that the main challenges are that we have quite a lot of ambitions and goals from our side, which in a way meet the plans and the policies which are being implemented or will be implemented by the government, but there's a great disparity in the speed at which we would like to see change happening. Obviously in our industry, it's a very fast-moving young industry. We like to see change happening very quickly, whereas from the government side, they have a lot more restriction on what they can do, and also they have long planning term processes where things that we think should be implementable within 6 months could take them 2 or 3 years to even get to the point where they can discuss them. So yeah, that is something I think that is an issue that we can help the government to understand how we can help them with the experiences that we have from our industry, being a fast, young, highly mobile industry with a lot of experience around, for example, sustainability and ESG reporting from our home countries. But that information needs to filter through to the people that need to get it on the government and the structural side, and that is a bit of an issue.
And how to encourage collaboration and knowledge sharing within the industry among the companies?
Well, we have the iGen Communications core team, which meets every month. We have a mailing list and we have a communications channel, and within that group, any members which feel that there is issues that they want to get involved with can actively get involved and also steer the direction of the work that we're doing. I mentioned before, I think of the members that we have, maybe 15 of them are actively involved in the core team, the meetings and the discussion channels that we have. So anyone, for example, that has a specific concern or issue around, for example, ESG or sustainability issues, can bring those up within the core team group, and we can then make those into policies or initiatives that we can then carry forward. So yeah, that's how we would share it within the iGen group. But of course, being a lobbying organization, we have no mandate to force people to get involved. I mean, it's very much down to the individual companies, whether they feel there are things that they want to get involved with or not. And when it comes to, for example, the CSR, the environmental side, we have quite a lot of active members, but it's not everybody by far. There are other members that are more interested in the regulatory side of it, and like I say, I'm not involved in that so much. So I don't really know what's happening on that side, but yeah, that's how we would share it. We have the channels that we have, and also Within my role, I'm responsible for, I maintain the iGen website. We have the customer-facing iGaming website, which is basically there to promote Malta as a destination for iGaming, and a lot of our members can aggregate their vacant job positions there. And then we have social media channels. We have LinkedIn pages, Facebook pages, and Instagram channels and stuff where we're constantly pumping out information. And one of my roles is to aggregate any relevant social media content that our members are putting out through their channels and then resharing them through ours and commenting on them. So that is basically the sharing process that we have.
That sounds very interesting. Before we get to the big event coming after tomorrow on Saturday, the June 10th, the cleanup, do you mind telling me a bit more about the initiatives you had in the past organized by iGen?
Sure. When I first came on board, I worked with iGen previously when I was working at Betson, basically around the idea of concerns around reputation management, which obviously the iGaming industry has. And one of iGen's main focus areas is to present a more appealing face of the gaming industry to the Maltese public, for example. So I was involved with producing some video content around success stories of Maltese people who'd actually come into the iGaming industry and were doing successful careers and stuff. And then we came up with the idea of the iGaming EU website, which we then produced. But I was involved in the environmental work as a private individual. During COVID, I started up a local little cleanup initiative in the village where I live. And I was just basically going out, because I was no longer going to the office, I had a lot more sort of spare time on my hands. So I would go around, walking around the countryside where I lived out there, and the amount of rubbish was just appalling and shocking. So I started taking bags with me when I went out and started picking up rubbish and stuff. And that has kind of snowballed to the point where 3 years later, I have been invited to join this the Coalition for Sustainable Development, and I have many thousands of followers on my Facebook page. So when I left Betson, iGen, the founder of iGen, Enrico, he contacted me and said, look, we're really interested in organizing similar kind of cleanups for our members. Would you be interested in coming aboard and doing that? And in fact, the cleanups I was organizing through my local thing, Enrico and family members and friends had come to those cleanups just as private individuals. So he knew what I was doing, and he liked the work that I was doing. So one of the first things I did when I came back into the fold at iGen was to identify a calendar of major international environmental events that we could sort of piggyback onto. So the first one we did was for Earth Day in 2022. And basically, I created the whole event. I scouted various locations that I felt needed to be cleaned up, because as well as sort of being environmentalist, I'm a keen cyclist and hiker. So I'm out in the countryside the whole time. So I see areas which are particularly in need of help. And I coordinated with the Magistrale Park Rangers, as they were called at that time, because what we needed to do was to locate an area that needed environmental cleanups, and then organize all of the logistics around that and promote it, create the communications around it. And then obviously to make sure people knew where it was and how they could get there and that kind of stuff. So the first event for Earth Day, I think we had about 60 volunteers who turned up, and as well as iGen member volunteers, we also had volunteers from the Malta Gaming Authority and a number of other organizations that came. And luckily we had a professional photographer who came along, and they wrote about it, and it made quite a large article in Times of Malta. So that was a success story. A great day. Everybody had, I think the impression I got from everybody that took part in it was that this was something they really enjoyed doing, and they felt it was a valuable use of their spare time, and they'd love to get involved in that again. So the next thing I did was, the next item on the calendar was, that was World Oceans Day last year. So at that time, because the KFS Coalition were also doing cleanups, within the KFS we have a number of diving organizations that do seabed cleanups. So we organize a joint onshore and seabed cleanup with the members of the KFS. So I think maybe that's one of my most proudest achievements is that I can bring the iGaming CSR world together with the local KFS environmental groups and bring them together, because I mean, I see this as reputation management as well, because if the Maltese people see the iGaming industry as a bunch of sort of foreigners coming down here living a good life and not giving anything back, they can see that that is not the case, because we have the volunteers from the iGaming industry coming out and getting involved on the ground, cleaning up the local environments. And also for the, I think the iGaming volunteers to meet sort of local Maltese environmental organizations and volunteers, and sort of to build that kind of unified front. And I think that's been very successful. So we did the Oceans Day cleanup at Bahari Char, where I live, and the seabed cleanup actually took place at Shamshir, which is the next bay around. And I think at that time, from the land-based cleanup, we pulled 70 industrial sacks worth of rubbish from the coastline, and the divers pulled up it was just horrendous amounts of fishing nets and car tires and sunbeds from hotels and all kinds of stuff, sunken boats and car batteries and stuff like that. So it was a very successful day. And then we had the what's become a bit of a tradition, sort of the after cleanup mingle at the beach, where everybody sat around and talked about it. And we also had a photographer there, so obviously all of the imagery and film footage from that came to me, and I was pushing that out through our social media channels, which was very successful. And then because of that, the next item on the agenda was for World Cleanup Day, which was in September of last year. And because we've been quite successful in promoting what we're doing, we were contacted then by the Ministry of Environment, Energy and Enterprise, and they asked us if we wanted to get into, or if we wanted to have a collaboration with them, because we had officially become official members of the World Cleanup. We registered ourselves on their website, so we were one of 3 official events that were held in Malta for World Cleanup Day, and they wanted to collate all of the findings, how much litter, the data around the litter we were collecting, so they could submit that as the national result of the cleanup day. So they sent down their ambient Malta rangers to interfere, and they were there with scales, and we then supplied all of our volunteers with luggage scales and sent them off to do the various cleanup areas. So it was an exercise in military planning, if you like. I mean, we needed to weigh how much stuff we were finding. So whoever we sent, if they were too far away to carry it physically down to the weighing station, they would weigh where they were and notate it then. And I think, if I remember correctly, we collected 1,500 kilos of rubbish in 2 hours, which was pretty impressive. The Economy Minister, Ryan Shambi, he came down with his PR team. We had the emergency services volunteering there, so we had the fire and ambulance services came down. Which was great because we had a lot of children coming down with their parents as volunteers. So it was a great day. I think everybody felt it was really a really useful and productive use of their time. So last year they were the 3 big ones that we did, and then so for this year we've done. I think what we experienced was a bit of cleanup fatigue. I think a lot of our members started saying, "Yeah, it's great doing the cleanups, but place gets dirty again afterwards. Is there anything else we can do?" And I'd actually been looking into some other kinds of activities we could do. So tree planting had been something that had been discussed within the core team group. So I reached out to the NGO Dinlat Elba, which it's basically the Maltese version of the National Trust, if you know what that is. And they have an expert, David Azzopardi, who has an afforestation project in Magistrate Park, and asked him if there's something we could do together with him, and we did. We very successfully, I think we had again about 60 volunteers gathered at Magistrate Park, and we basically cleared a lot of vegetation which had grown up around the tree plantations which had already been there, and then we helped clear new land for more tree planting there. And we also had the help of the Magistrate Park Rangers, who are now gradually morphing into the Malta Ranger Unit, which is an official NGO. They took a lot of volunteers from iGaming volunteers on a guided tour through the park, where they explained how they work with the environment and safeguarding the environment and how they deal with sort of illegalities within the park area. And so, yeah, that's the last event that we did, and
Thank
again,
you for
very
bringing
successful.
this up, because that was meant to be my next question. Rubbish and deforestation, the sort of immediate and the most obvious problems everybody can see. But are there any plans or thoughts to bring it on a larger scale? Because when we talk about sustainability, there are so many more problems coming to it, especially when it comes, be it carbon emissions,
Yes.
being all the IT infrastructure that is being built, over usage of electricity, and many more things. And some of the members of iGen are very large companies whose reach extends way outside Malta and even Europe internationally. So are there any plans to engage it on a bigger scale?
Well, obviously, our remit is for Malta and the Malta Gaming Authority, but obviously there are huge problems and huge issues which need to be dealt with here. I mean, when it comes to the afforestation, that's something that is obviously something that everybody can see the immediate benefits of. You know, if you have like a barren area of land and suddenly it's full of trees, everybody goes, there's a concrete example of how things are being improved. But one of the things that became very clear in my discussions with David Azzopardi was that there are quite a number of afforestation projects or tree planting projects which are carried out here, which are a bit more of the PR kind of exercise. So they'll get volunteers to go out there and they'll plant a load of trees and have a nice day out, and then they'll leave, and then the trees die because there's no infrastructure to take care of them. So when I first approached David, he said he was not prepared to do that kind of tree planting at all. He wanted to do sustainable tree planting, so he wanted to focus on that. And he is all for increasing the number of sustainable tree plantings which take place, but it's a long-term process, and also you need to plant the kind of trees which will survive here. So you need indigenous tree species and stuff like that, and you have to make sure that you have the infrastructure to take care of and water them, because a tree that's planted onto bare ground needs 3 years worth of care and attention before it can be left to grow by itself. So that's something to think about. Then as far as other issues, obviously one of the major problems that we see is plastic waste. I mean, that's something that I've been very much aware of since I started doing my cleanups, is that plastic is, I mean, obviously everybody knows this, it's no secret that plastic is a scourge of the modern world. I mean, you know, our planet is slowly suffocating under plastic. And there are various proposals and events and initiatives happening which will supposedly alleviate that problem to a certain extent. But one of the things that I've come across in the last 6 months of networking is some kind of technologies which could actually be extremely beneficial in not just relieving the problem, but perhaps even solving the problem. So this is something that you will hear a lot more about soon. But there is a company which I'm discussing with as part of my sustainability initiatives, who are looking to basically create a plastic-free environment in any country that's interested by recycling waste plastic. And they can recycle waste plastic back into usable plastics rather than currently as you have with the PET plastic bottles. Those bottles can only be recycled into, for example, building materials, and so they can't be recycled back into usable plastic products. But with this new plastic recycling process, you can actually create food and hospital grade plastics from waste plastic. So this is something that I'm very excited about. And what we're discussing at the moment is the launch of this CSR plastic credit, which is a blockchain token that companies can invest in to offset their plastic consumption. So what you can basically do is calculate the plastic that your company or organization uses over the space of a year, and you can buy plastic tokens to offset that, and they will then recycle plastic to that value back into usable plastic products or into bio oil, which can be used for various different things. So that is something which is very exciting to me at the moment, I think, because basically what you're doing is you're giving plastic waste a financial value, which it has never had before. That's why it's dumped into the environment, because nobody knows what to do with it and it has no value. And if we can create an economic value for waste plastic, it becomes a usable commodity. It becomes a resource rather than being what it is at the moment. So a catastrophe for the environment. So, yeah, these are exciting times. There's a lot of new technologies which are coming out, which we need to get involved in. And Malta, I think, is a brilliant country that can be a test case for that kind of thing. because it's investment in new technologies and the digital world. I think Malta is a perfect test case for this kind of solution, I think.
That sounds amazing, yes, because we're heading our own green IT project aiming to become a completely carbon neutral company.
Yeah.
So we're always on the lookout for the new emerging technologies and whatever initiatives are coming up. So just to wrap up our today's interview, so definitely the cleanups and forestation projects are amazing and there is immediate benefit, but from the way I see whatever comes out of it is not so much cleaning up a certain patch of land and removing a certain number of kilos of plastic or planting a certain number of trees, but it's setting the example and leading by example, and to show that with a small effort you can let's say produce realistic change and inspire others to do so. So coming back to the upcoming Saturday Ocean Day cleanup, which will be happening between 10 a.m. and 1 p.m. Whoever is local in Malta, you still have time to join. We're meeting up next to Manuel Island. So if you want to, feel free to come around. What are the main objectives and expectations from that project? Because from what I understood, it's not your first rodeo. I didn't realize that you already had a similar cleanup last year.
Yes. I think one of the major benefits, as I mentioned before, is bringing the iGaming community and the local environmental community, the groups together to make them understand that we are all in this together, and it's we all have a stake in the future of these islands and our environment, and it's in all of our interest to get involved. The fact that we're doing a seabed cleanup, I think these are slightly more complex and highly visible cleanups. I mean, anyone can go into the countryside with a plastic bag and pick up some bottles, and it's great if you do that, and I would thoroughly recommend you do it. But things like the hidden issues of dumped waste at sea, as I mentioned before, where we're finding sort of abandoned fishing nets which are detrimental to wildlife, and you find turtles and dolphins and all kinds of wildlife entangled and killed by these kind of things. So what's hidden below the surface is as important as what's visible to us. I mean, so yes, planting trees, absolutely. Cleaning up the environment, yes, but it needs to be sort of everywhere. We need to take it as a holistic whole, and bringing together the iGaming industry and the divers from the local community, I think it's just bridge building, and I think it helps with the reputation management, as I said before, that the local people can see that we're actually all here pulling together for the common good. And it sends a very strong signal, I think, to the government and the powers that perhaps don't always have the same focus that we have on the actual situation on the ground. I mean, there's one thing to say that we're going to, for example, green the whole urban area inland. But one of the things that I think brought that home to me was when they announced the €700,000 greening proposal for a couple of inland areas. They said, well, why are we building more green areas when we don't take care of the areas we already have? That's what it comes down to. To focus on, let's take care of what we already have and don't let it get degraded anymore, rather than sort of building new sort of artificial green areas, sort of thing. So yeah, I think that would be my hope, that the next cleanup will be one of many which gradually, incrementally raise the profile of the work we're trying to do here, and bringing sustainable development onto the agenda more so than perhaps it is already today.
Thank you very much, Glenn. I think we will wrap it up for today. There are so many more questions I would like to ask you, but I will leave them for the magazine article. We are issuing another edition of our future iGaming magazine in a few months, and we'll have a large section of it dedicated to the sustainability within the iGaming industry. So stay on the lookout. There's going to be a big feature from the iGaming, from our iGen members, and we will discuss the topic further there. Sure. Thank you very much, Glenn. Thank you very much for everybody who joined us today. Have a great day, and I will see you in a month on the first Wednesday of the month.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you.